Your child's teacher. Are they teaching to your child or to their evaluation? That's what I want to talk about in this episode of The Math Rebel. A few years ago, I was in a class, in a math class as a substitute, and the students, were working on equations for parabolas. And this time I brought my iPad. I happened to bring it that day, and I was showing them on the iPad how, get all that stuff out there, worked. Yeah. There we go. I was showing them how it worked, and showing how a different graph, the equations would make the parabola move around the graph. And I was sitting at a table, and I had probably about 6 or 7 students on the opposite side, and I think one maybe next to me, were working on the paper, and I was explaining how this worked. And a young lady, in the middle of this said, she told me, she goes, "Mister, it's real nice that we have somebody here to teach us, that works with us, instead of worry about the 4 boys in back that aren't paying attention." And so I asked her, I said, "Well, how much time does your teacher spend on the boys in the back going, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention?" And she said about half the class time. The other kids nodded their head in confirmation of this. And I kind of know what was happening, and I kind of confirm this as I go through substituting different classes and ask. What this teacher was doing was trying to get everybody engaged. The reason is that if an administrator walks in a teacher's classroom, either principal or vice principal or assistant principal, whatever, the first thing they look at is what's called engagement. How many students at that moment are paying attention to the teacher? And see, the teacher never knows when the administrator is going to walk in, so the incentive is to keep everybody paying attention. And so that's why a lot of time will be wasted on pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. That's why I kind of stopped being a regular teacher, because I could not do what effectively I felt, as a teacher. A few other things. I said this, if I'm a sub and I'm teaching a math class and a principal or assistant principal walks in, they're like, "Oh, cool, I got a substitute that could teach a math class." Whereas if I was a contracted full-time teacher, administrator walks in, now they're looking at engagement, are the right papers on the wall, do you have the standard for the day, are you using the strategic teaching methods that we discussed in our meetings, and a bunch of other bureaucratic nonsense that I felt that really wasn't important as it is for me to explain to the student how the math worked, and did the student understand it, and can the student digest it. That to me what was the most important thing about teaching is, can I convey to the student to where the student is learning the subject matter and gaining the requisite skills to go on to further more advanced mathematical studies. Teachers are handicapped in that way. And so if you're a parent with a child in high school, ask them, how much time does your teacher spend saying, pay attention, pay attention. And sometimes teachers can get caught in the catch-22, as it happened when I was a full-time teacher. School had a lot of discipline problems. And the principal, we were in a meeting on Wednesdays, and the principal said, if a kid is not disruptive, don't send him out. Just if he's sleeping, just let him sleep. Don't send him out because it's not disrupting class. And the teacher pointed out, okay, so here we are. We have this child asleep in class. You come in and we get dinged because that child's not paying attention. That's the type of thing that goes on in school today that teachers have to deal with. And then I got told in other ways, the way I teach, I kind of try to tell students, you're not going to get what I say the first time every time I say it. So if you don't get something, if I lose you, let me know. You know, like where'd you get the 5? You know, get something very similar to that. And so I can take, 10 to 15 seconds, maybe explain how I got that number, and then that student's on board. And then I got asked, okay, when I do this, what are the other students doing? Well, they're, waiting. And so I was told, well, these other students, you're wasting their time. So don't do that. Which I thought, quite frankly, I thought was stupid. Because even though that student might not get it, doesn't mean he's the only one or she's the only one that did not get it. Other students might say, oh yeah, I'm just kind of worried about that. And a lot of times, because I've tutored on an individual basis, had a business, many students are reluctant to say they don't get it, but I can tell. Something I became proficient at doing. I had a young lady, we were going over something in geometry, and I explained it to her, and I had a little smart board, and she said, no, I don't get it. Second time, yeah, I get it. And I looked at her and says, no, you don't. And she told me, well, I don't want you to think I'm stupid. I said, your parents aren't paying for that. They're paying for you to get it. And it took a couple more explanations, then I knew she got it. So that interaction is very important to the student learning process. It's not just me being a lecturer up there and telling everybody how to do this. Not every child's going to get it. I might have to explain it different ways. And I've had, for instance, a geometry class where I was going over something, I tried to explain it 2 different ways and they didn't get it. And finally the third way, the class got it. So the next period, I'm not going to start those 2 other ways. I'm going to start this third way because it was a learning process for me on how to reach the students. That flexibility is starting to be taken away out of the school system. It is very important that the teacher be flexible enough to reach every single student if possible. Now some students, because of attitude problems, I can't reach. But if it's a confusion issue, I take pride on trying to reach students that are confused to get them to understand. And I meet with them later and they thank me because they were able to do well on a test because of what I instilled in them and helped them in gaining those math skills that they needed to have. And I took time on an individual basis. But many teachers are teaching to their evaluations. They're worried about the papers on the wall, the proper things written on the board, the student engagement, make sure everybody's paying attention. All these other things besides making sure the students understand the math, and are they understanding the subject matter, and are they improving their math skills, which to me is what education is all about. So check with your children. Ask them these questions. You might be surprised. Now, as I said, I've written 3 math books for elementary school. You can teach your children math. One is for preschool to early elementary, one's middle elementary, and one's late elementary. There are links in the description box below. I will be going over more math ideas for parents to help their children with math in early elementary, which is where I'm at now. So subscribe, and thanks for listening. See you next time.
"82 rules, baby."